There's no echo, Scott, or there is?
I'll try again.
Much better. Thanks, Taylor.
Great.
Yeah, completely opposite. So.
This was an inside job.
Mr. Terr?
Thank you.
Counts. Good afternoon, Salt Lake City and council members. Let's get started. I know there's a couple people still trickling in, but I'll get started with the announcements. Welcome to today's city council meeting. Our meetings are public and you are welcome to join us in person or by watching from the council's agenda page, Zoom, Facebook, YouTube, or SLC TV. We hope you'll continue to join us in whichever manner you feel most comfortable. This is a work session meeting during which there is no public comment, but you can join us tonight during our 7 p.m. formal meeting to share your comments. And of course, we welcome your feedback anytime to P.O. Box 145476, Salt Lake City, Utah 84114. By email at council.comments@slcgov.com or via our 24-hour phone comment line 801-535-7654. We will begin our work session, and the first item on our work session agenda is nominating a new council chair and vice chair for calendar year 2024. It's been an honor to serve as the chair in 2023, and I'm also looking forward to passing that honor on to somebody else. Do we have nominations for a new chair?
Mr. Chair, yes, I would love to nominate Victoria Petro as chair for 2024.
Excellent. Are there any other nominations for council chair for 2024? All right. Councilmember Petro, do you accept the nomination and would you like to speak to it?
I happily accept the nomination, and I'm thankful that for my first 2 years, I've gotten to watch the leadership of Councilmember Dugan and now sit intimately under your leadership. And I'm excited for the chance to continue the tradition of excellence that I've witnessed.
Well, that was very kind words. How could I not vote for you now? All right.
I'm good at campaigning, apparently.
I think that we have some ballots that will be passed out for us to each write our vote, and we'll pass that to the city recorder, Cindy Lou Trishman, and you need to write your name on the top and then choose your vote below.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'll go ahead with the ballots. For council chair, Councilmember Young voted for Councilmember Petro. Councilmember Wharton also voted for Councilmember Petro. Councilmember Poi for Councilmember Petro. Councilmember Dugan also for Councilmember Petro. Councilmember Lopez Chavez for Councilmember Petro, and Councilmember Mono for Councilmember Petro. So it's unanimous.
Thank you. That was really close. Congratulations, Councilmember Petro. We will now open nominations for vice chair, and I would like to use my privilege as still having the microphone to first nominate Councilmember Wharton to serve as our vice chair for 2024. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, Councilmember Wharton, do you accept, and would you like to speak to that?
I humbly accept. No, I don't need a speech. Thank you, though. Happy to get back to it.
Well, I'm going to give a speech then. Councilmember Wharton was the chair when I first joined the council, and it was, as we all know, a very complicated year in 2020, and you did a very good job leading the council through the most tumultuous time in the history of Salt Lake City. So, thank you.
Thank you. It was quite a year.
Mr. Chair, for the vice chair election, Councilmember Young has voted for Councilmember Wharton. Councilmember Poi has also voted for Councilmember Wharton. Councilmember Wharton has voted for himself. Councilmember Mono has voted for Councilmember Wharton. Councilmember Petro has voted for Councilmember Wharton. And Councilmember Lopez Chavez has voted for Councilmember Wharton, as well as Councilmember Dugan. So affirm a unanimous vote.
Congratulations, Councilmember Wharton.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, I don't get to leave this chair yet because it's not technically official till tonight's formal meeting, so I'll continue speaking. Item number 2 on our agenda is an informational update from the administration. I understand we have Katie Reiser, our Special Projects and Volunteer Program Manager, Andrew Johnson, Director of Homelessness Policy and Outreach, and Lindsay Nicola, Deputy Chief of Staff. who is going to speak to us about water today, and I missed one name. Chamali Hernandez Garcia. Thank you for joining us.
Sorry, can I have you pull the microphone closer and make sure the light is green, please? Thank you.
Thank you. On our first slide, we have a regular community engagement highlight feedback page. Remember, you can go to our website to be regularly updated with ways to engage with the city. Next slide. We only have a few short updates from planning. Coming soon to the Planning Commission on January 10th, a hearing is scheduled for the historic overlay enforcement and gas stations near water bodies proposal. There's also a text amendment on demolition in historic districts that has been reviewed by the Historic Landmarks Commission and will be scheduled for a public hearing in February. Phase 1, moving to public lands, phase 1 of community engagement for the Emerald Ribbon Master Plan has closed. Public lands will work with the project consultant to develop proposals based on the community's input. Public lands will host multiple workshops in March to share the proposals and collect additional input. Lastly, Warm Springs and North Gateway Park were selected as one of the reimagined neighborhood parks to receive funding from the Parks, Trails, and Open Space General Obligation Bond. Focus groups with Native American and Indigenous groups were held in December, and a survey for both parks closed on December 30th. The consultants will now use the survey and workshop feedback to develop concept designs. Next slide. I'm very excited to introduce to you all our 2 neighborhood specialists for the Love Your Block program. To my left, we have Chamali Hernandez Garcia, and behind us, Diana Ramirez, new neighborhood specialist. And I'll give Chamali a chance to give a quick, brief update on where we're at with that program and looking at 2024.
It's great to see you all here tonight, council members. With a full staff running the Love Your Block program, we are excited to expand into the Ballpark and Guadalupe neighborhoods while still remaining within our lovely West Side neighborhoods. Our applications this year will be opening March 1st and will remain open until March 30th. A quick 2022-2023 recap. Since 2022, Love Your Block has awarded 18 resident-led neighborhood improvement projects and has led or assisted a total of 72 volunteer projects on the West Side. Over the course of this program, Love Your Block has awarded $30,000 in mini grants and leveraged an additional $80,961 in donations, in-kind services, and cost sharing. Lastly, I want to highlight that this tremendous effort was done with over 4,000 volunteers, removing 93,223 pounds of trash, incorporating 26 new art displays, and installing 60 new features across the West Side. I'd also like to direct everyone to our brand new website. She's very, very pretty. www.slc.gov/mayor/Love Your Block to see an interactive map of projects that we've done and ways to get involved. Next slide.
Thank you. Council members, I'm here to provide a hydrologic update, which I know we have scheduled a briefing in the coming months that'll be more robust than this, but this is really just a status update for where things are right now. So the watershed basins that are primary sources of drinking water in the city, and for those who we provide drinking water for, these are the percentages that they're full. So City Creek Canyon, 87%, Parley's Canyon, 82%, Big Cottonwood Canyon, 73%, and Little Cottonwood Canyon, 92% full. The next section is watershed basins that are of interest to the city, and you're getting kind of similar levels of fullness there in the 70s to 80s. The entire state is coming in at 73%. And then if you want to go on to the next page for me.
Lindsay, you might not know this, and that's okay.
Sure.
But how's that compared to last year?
They didn't give me that information, so I do apologize.
Okay, great.
But so far this year, we've not seen as much snow as we saw last year. So I have to imagine it is probably likely less, but there's not a way to know exactly how much we'll see moving forward. So there could be some catch up, not 100% sure.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So two other bodies of water that are critical water sources for Salt Lake City and the Wasatch Front. Deer Creek Reservoir is 94% full, and Utah Lake, which is an important linchpin for the Salt Lake City water supplies and the Wasatch Front, is currently 93.71% full. The drought monitor, as of January 2nd, there's no drought listing for Salt Lake County and 68% of the state. However, hydrologic drought concerns continue to persist for the Great Salt Lake. While not as large as last year's snowpack, we have seen much worse snowpack over the last several years. And over the next week, our canyon watersheds are expected to receive several feet of snow, adding more water to our stored supply. So the next update should be illuminating. And then finally, we still have 3 months for snowpack to build or not. Hopefully, yes, before the official start of the water year, which is on April 1st. So monitoring continues. It's still very important to conserve, and we'll have more on that coming up. We can move to Andrew's update.
Thank you.
Council members, you can see on the screen we're still running very high capacity. What the 99% reflects is the year-round beds in addition to the winter overflow beds at those locations. The Code Blue beds are being filled but not to capacity yet this year, which means we've had more beds available at different locations than have been used so far during the Code Blue events. This week is going to be one of the tests for us. We haven't had this many Code Blue events sequentially yet this year, and we'll see how that works. We already had one hiccup at one facility with a bathroom, which meant we couldn't open up last night, but that facility, Valley Behavioral Health, will be open again for Code Blue. No encampment impact mitigation work this year due to Code Blue and storms. Excuse me. There will continue to be some cleaning as needed in different areas of the city, just the routine stuff for the most part, and some specific locations, but not the health department issues and not large camp cleanings. The resource fairs are back in a different mode right now. So they're going to start at the Miller Resource Center this Friday, and they'll be internal to the resource center. So they'll have opportunities for the guests to have resources offered there on site, and they're planning to move those around to different centers throughout the wintertime to hit all of them. The other two pieces are the point in time count is 2 weeks from now, essentially January 25th. It starts. They always need lots of volunteers for those 3 nights to go out and help count folks who are unsheltered on the streets throughout the county. And so you can look at the Salt Lake Valley Coalition and Homelessness website, which is on the left in yellow. They have all the information there about how to join. The Code Blue shelters also need volunteers. That's also a form you can find on the Salt Lake Valley Coalition and Homelessness website, and that's where you can sign up for places where you think you might be available at times in the night, and then they will send out information on what's needed, and you can respond based on your availability. But they need lots of folks to help keep those open through the wintertime. Any questions on that or any issues there?
Just the volunteer opportunities, I think it'd be great if you could share that with us so we can share it with our constituents. How to get in contact, where to go, who to.
We can definitely do that.
Mr.
Yeah.
Andrew, do we know how many volunteers are needed? I think when we're sharing information, a lot of our community members are excited to help, but we don't have a good funnel for them. And I would love to know that.
Yeah, there's a fair number of folks who sign up saying I'm available, and they'll choose I'm available 7 to 11 p.m., 11 to 3, 3 to 6 or 8 or whatever it is. But you're right. When the actual days come up like today, very few actually sign up for shifts. And, you know, when you have a day job or a night job or family or activities or things, it's difficult. So yeah, we just need a big volume and have a better chance of getting a few folks every night. So it's not the same people every night.
Do you have more of an update, or can I ask other questions related to this?
Next slide has a bunch of stuff on it. So I want to make sure we hit this first before I get to that one. All right, next slide. Okay. So we got a series of questions from the council members. This is, I think, most, if not all of them, not including a specific situation that happened on the weekend. We sent an email back to council staff detailing responses to all of these written form that's much more robust than what's on here. My question for you all is, want me to go through all of these questions now? Do you want to look at the email and do a follow-up? Some of these questions now, something later on? How would
I'd
you like to
really
proceed?
like to discuss and get quickly information about the Code Blue enforcement, particularly around when we can take vehicles in tents, what recourse is if it's wrongly enforced, and why our funds weren't available this weekend when we approved emergency funds. They should have been available before Christmas. We have an ongoing relationship with that provider. Like, I'd like to discuss all of that, please.
Okay. We can start with the funding. How about that? The funding that was identified was $300,000 to be used by the Road Home for an existing program that utilizes motel rooms to help address families and singles in the past who can't fit into the family shelter or other places. That program is actually up and running now. So with the Road Home, they have an existing contract with us or existing provider. They are able to float sometimes or just keep services moving consistently. What they needed to do was get staff. And so they have been working to get staff through the holidays. They have staff. It is running now. They are able to utilize rooms. One of the issues is we've approved 12 rooms essentially, and they've had probably twice that many families they're working with and trying to prioritize in. So they have moved to get 2 families working with the school district and an advocate group in already this week and utilizing those rooms. They're still searching for other rooms to continue that process forward.
So can you confirm to me, when I hear from staff at the Road Home that the funds are not available because the contract is not completed, and that's the holdup, is that a miscommunication to me? Is there someone missing? This was not a staffing issue. I asked, doubled down and asked. It was that our contract was not executed with them.
I've talked to Sarah String, the chief operating officer over there, as of yesterday. They have the ability to continue the program without the current contract in place, which is being finalized right now. They have the staff being hired. So whether it's miscommunication or something else, I don't know. What I know is what from their end, what they have, and what they're doing this week with the folks.
Is this an ordinance that we need to look at when we say something is an emergency fund, especially when we're giving it to a provider with whom we have an ongoing engagement, which means we have lots of recourse? I really want those funds out the door. When it's a CDBG, like all those other things, like fine, let's take our time on contracts. But we made this under duress. We persuaded one of our co-council members to vote with us because of the emergent nature. If this is us updating an ordinance to make sure funds designated as emergency by this body get distributed in a more quickly and orderly fashion, I'm willing to put political capital behind that to make sure that gets done.
Let me check with the attorneys. I think Andrew might be saying something a little bit different. So whether those funds are transferred from the city to the contractor is one issue. And that was what they were saying to you, is that hadn't been done. What Andrew was saying is that typically the relationship is that they would go ahead and utilize other money in anticipation.
Yes.
What you're saying is it would be cleaner if they had the money and then they
I just don't want to
don't
rely on a nonprofit in a post-COVID fundraising landscape to have to be relied on for an emergency case like this. When we're talking about general operating and all those other things, I'm fine with us being more methodical and going through with a fine-tooth comb. But we've allocated money specifically so I wouldn't get the text that I got this weekend about a little girl who was living in a car with her parents after surviving an abatement, being cold with no place to go. We allocated the funds that wouldn't come to me.
So what we need to do is follow back with finance to see what is the exact status. What is, once you approved, then what is the exact status of deploying those funds? So we will do that first.
And if this is someone doing what they're supposed to do in the city, I'm fine with creating a new pathway. I don't know if my co-counselors, but like we did this with COVID, we got money out real quick. I know we have mechanisms. My intention is that when we designate something emergency, it should be treated similarly to what we did during COVID.
Okay, so we will follow up and report back.
Thank you.
But what Andrew, you're saying is that is not an issue right now, that organization is deploying the funds in the way that the city council and city administration intended.
Yes, the services are there. Now the information pathways are important to think about in these situations, about the specific situation you're identifying, and there's information regarding that we can talk about, but not in this context. The operations of the road home as a contractor with us are happening, whether the money's there or not, because of the relationship and the nature of the services, they continue working. Now, we cannot force one of our contractors to do something past what they feel appropriate, whether it's staffing, process, whatever on their end. So I think that's a piece to also keep in mind with while we're working on this, that we are relying on them to deliver the service in the way that they're doing it. If we have a concern about that, that's a contractor issue, not a process issue with the funding and the contract. Does that make sense?
Isn't the acceptance of the emergency funding the acceptance of the condition that it has to be distributed in accordance with, if we said 12 rooms, like it has to be dealt with in an expeditious manner? Wouldn't that be a tacit agreement to the conditions?
I don't think that there's any expectation that they delay this at all. I think that we're also talking to a professional provider about how they deliver services in the way that they understand in their experience with the operators, the motels, their staff, and the clients. It's not always a clear thing of just saying, open the motel room and go in there and be fine and we'll figure things out on the way. I will say in personal experience, it is very, very easy to burn bridges with motels that way. And part of the struggle right now in getting motels is experiences in the past where it hasn't been well done. Motels operators don't trust folks anymore, and they will no longer let folks in. That narrows our focus and our ability to get folks into motel rooms because we have fewer of them. So when we talk with the road home, for instance, we've got to talk to them about their experience, how they're handling this, and keep pushing on these in appropriate ways without burning those bridges as well, because we're going to need those later in the winter and next as well.
So then my assumption would be when we allocate the money in early mid, it was, thank you, early mid-December, we had yet to have a code blue. We had a relatively mild December. In that time frame is when the negotiations were going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then the report I got isn't that it was a dearth of rooms. It was that the money wasn't there. So is this just someone who is giving information who's not versed with like the nuance that I'm looking for, like the level of nuance? Or are you telling, I'm just not sure where the breakdown was in this particular issue. Is it in us actually getting them the money? Is it now you're saying it might have been because we didn't have the rooms lined up, or because lining the rooms up is more methodical?
It's a combination. I'm guessing, I don't know who you spoke with, so I can't speak to their level of knowledge of the situation. What I can speak to is our process and their process to my knowledge. You need the staff, the rooms, and the funding. If they've got the funding, or it's promised and they're willing to move forward on it, which they are, then it's about the staff they feel appropriate and the rooms they have available and how to do that. It's also a third piece, which hasn't been talked about here, maybe fourth, depending on where I am in my list. It's also when you have 24 plus families and you have 12 potential rooms, there's a prioritization process in there inherently, and trying to figure out, it's an awful process for everybody, but they're also taking that into account in how they handle situations. So I can't speak to the level of knowledge of the person you spoke to. I can speak to who I know at the road home, who I've spoken to this week about it, and their internal process and how they're handling this. So I feel confident personally right now that they've done everything they can on their end. They're telling us we've done everything on our end to facilitate a quick transfer of these funds. I don't think that's been the problem in there. I think there may be other issues in the process of housing folks and that, but we can get into that more in depth perhaps another time.
All right.
Mr. Chair, very quickly.
Okay, yeah, we're 30 minutes behind, so quickly.
I think in general, I'm interested in when this body allocates resources and something that is an emergency matter or urgent, that we may be looking into a reporting mechanism to us. So something that comes back to us and said, we allocated X, Y, and Z for X, Z project, that we get some information back, because, it cuts out on the miscommunication that is happening outside. It may be true or not. I just want to know where the status of it is, and maybe the issues are real, and there is a very good reason for things to be delayed. or not. But I think that the communication between these two branches needs to be a little more. And I understand that your branch of government is connected to an array of entities, non-profit organizations, and actors that are hard to track. But that information needs to come to us. So every time I'm looking into maybe a potential. Every time that we trigger, there's a word that we need to trigger and say, okay, urgent or emergency or whatever it is, it triggers a reporting mechanism to us. That being said, it could be an email, right? That comes back every other week or a week, or to tell us where the status of that money is. And it doesn't mean that it's just to report the reality to us, because in this case, obviously, this issue is a very charged one and is a very urgent one, and we feel very strong about, and knowing that that there might be changes or delays or maybe not would have been useful. So we cut on the stresses and the potential dramas that we create here. But thank you.
All right. Any more comments? All right. Thank you. Andrew, did you have?
No, like you said, there's been an email sent with outlining all the answers to the questions that were submitted to us, and then a separate email to a separate question that Councilmember Petro had as well. So we can follow up on those if you'd like offline. Just let us know how it would be helpful for you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for your update today, administration. The next item is item number 3. It is an ordinance about a rezone at several parcels around 300 East and 500 South. The proposal is going to be presented by Nick Tarbett, Council Policy Analyst, introduced by Nick Tarbett, and then presented by Sarah Javarnock, a Senior Planner.
Scott, could you pull up the presentation for this? I'll turn the time all over to Sarah since we're behind, but the applicant is here. They're available to answer questions if the council has any.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Can you go to the next slide, please? Thanks. So this is a zoning map amendment or rezone request for 4 properties that are located at the intersection of 500 South and 400 East. The proposal is to rezone the property from RMU 45 to TSA UCC, or Transit Station Area Urban Center Core. This zoning district allows for greater building height by right than what is permitted in the RMU 45 zoning district. It allows for up to 90 feet by right, and the RMU 45 allows for 45 feet by right. Future development plans were not submitted with the application, but the applicant does plan to move forward with the Liberty Duet proposal that is immediately adjacent to the public safety building. So on that westernmost property there, they do plan to move forward with a project that was previously approved that would have a maximum height of 60 feet since it went through a design review and plan development processes. And there have not been plans submitted for the other parcels that are located to the east. The next slide, please. So as far as considerations for the council, planning staff looked at compatibility with planning documents, including Plan Salt Lake, the Central Community Plan, and Housing SLC. The site is close to transit routes, including the TRAX line on 400 South, and the proposed rezoning would continue to allow for a range of land uses, including a broader range than would be allowed with the current zone. And it's likely to provide for additional housing and the redevelopment of underutilized properties. As far as compatibility with nearby properties, to the west is the public safety building. To the south are properties that are zoned RO, that's across 500 South. The subject properties were zoned RO until 2012 when they were rezoned with the 400 South Livable Communities amendments. The rezone to RMU 45 was based on the anticipated scale of redevelopment. The property to the east, across 400 East, was rezoned to TSA UNC in 2021, which allows for up to 75 feet in height, and that was previously zoned RMU 45. and they're also located near other properties that are in the TSA UCC zoning district, the Exchange project to the north with Avia and Mia. And that concludes staff's presentation. The applicant is here and does wish to speak.
All right, council members, any questions for staff before we invite the applicant up? Councilmember Dugan.
Just real quickly on the ground floor activation, stores activation with the possibilities of residential on front. Is that one of the zoning allowable by zoning?
Sorry, what?
The ground floor activation, stores, storefronts on the front.
So this question is, what is allowed / required?
What is allowed for residential and mixed use?
Right, so the applicant's plans are to have a mixed-use building with residential on the upper floors and then a commercial or retail use on the first floor.
Can you let us know what it? I understand that's allowed in both the current zoning and the proposed zoning. Is it required in either, or are there any kind of activation? How does that work?
It is allowed, like you're saying, in both. As far as what is required, let me get to that section. So it does require use other than parking that for 75% of that ground floor use.
It being the proposed zone or the current zone?
In the proposed zone. And it would be 80% in the existing zone. So they're very similar requirements as far as the ground floor use. Those active uses do, there are some additional requirements with the recent updates to the design review standards and some of the downtown zones.
Lopez Chavez.
Thank you. Yeah, Sarah, my question is, and perhaps I'm just new to this and need this information. What type of units residential are we seeing? Is this 2-unit, 3-unit bedroom? What is going to be constructed here?
They have not made a proposal at this point. That's not required with the zoning map amendment.
Okay.
The applicant can talk more about what they're constructing with the existing project, though.
Thank you.
All right. I see no more questions. The applicant is here. Do you want to come up? Do you have a presentation as well?
No presentation.
Okay, great. Why don't you come say whatever you'd like to? I think our council policy is that as the applicant, you have 5 minutes to speak, and then we may ask you more questions as well. Please introduce yourself for the record.
My name is Zach Jones.
I'm lead aisle with Cowboy Partners.
You kind of need to speak really close to the microphone. And make sure that the green light is on.
You don't have a green light. We can share.
There we go.
Yeah, so thank you, Sarah. Thank you, council members. We don't want to take too much time just talking about it, but I'll touch briefly just on what is being constructed currently at the Liberty Duet site. So that's one of the 4 parcels mentioned in the rezone application here. But that is a 54-unit, all 2-bedroom project, and that was with the design intent to provide 2-bedroom units. Those are in high demand in Salt Lake, but also provide an opportunity for housing affordability for many to take up roommate situations and things like that helps out younger populations, those young professionals and such working in the downtown area. So,
Zach, did you say that was one of the 4 parcels? Is
Correct.
A 54, and there's 3 other parcels that are not yet planned?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And is the 54 units, you talked about affordability, but is it deed restricted affordability or market rate?
It is market rate.
Okay.
So he talks about affordability in terms of, you think about a lot of the units being built in downtown Salt Lake are studios, cost of that. But when you have a 2-bedroom unit, if you get a roommate situation, splitting the rent actually can make it more affordable than even a studio unit might cost you.
All right.
So the idea with this rezone, Liberty Duet isn't necessarily in need of the rezone in terms of the height because it already went through a plan development meeting, so it's approved under 60 feet. But for other parcels, it would allow those to have a little bit more density and height, which would provide additional housing. This was an application that we submitted prior to starting the Liberty Duet project, and so we didn't know if we'd even be able to move forward with the Liberty Duet project at the time, just due to costs and such. But we were fortunately able to move forward with that. But there may be some partnerships with the other parcels that don't have plans yet, and we don't know what those plans would be at this point.
If Liberty, you're saying that's already under construction?
Correct.
And is that the one that's on 357 East?
Correct.
Closest to the PSB?
Yes.
So why is that included in the rezone request if it's
As I
already in
said,
construction?
when we submitted the original application, we hadn't started construction yet, and we didn't know if we'd be able to move forward with the project just due to costs at the time and interest rates and such. And so we were looking for a rezone just because of the cost of land makes projects a little bit prohibitive without the additional density on the projects. And so anyway, we submitted the application, but while we were waiting for this meeting and for the rezone, we were able to find a way to move forward with Liberty Duet, but we're still interested in the rezone for the remainder of the parcels.
Okay. Council members?
I have a question.
Yeah, Councilor Wharton.
So typically, I mean, we don't have any rule about this, but when people come and ask for a rezone, and the council grants, this benefit to them, there's usually some kind of public good component to it, like affordable housing or some sort of sustainability component or something like that. What does your project have if it doesn't have affordable housing?
So I think the intent would be to provide a more active streetscape on the ground level that comes with the TSA zoning. It's required. It's not as strict in the RMU 45, but also it provides more housing options, more optionality for those living in and trying to live in an urban setting in downtown Salt Lake.
Right, but you said that you already can build by right, at least on one of the properties. You don't need the extra height because it's a planned development. So for most of the developers that come before us and ask for these things, there is some additional public benefit that they're adding. We definitely need more units, and that is very helpful, and I appreciate that. But I am curious if you would be open to other public other public benefits to this, like an affordable housing component, some sort of adding green space, or
so
there are a number of things that there are lots of options.
The current project under construction Liberty Duet doesn't have a mandated affordable component to it. The remaining parcels don't have a plan in place for those yet. I mean, Callaway Partners, we've often done, part of our mission is to provide affordable housing, deed-restricted affordable housing. One of the other co-applicants, Jeremy Thackson's here, and he does a lot of affordable housing as well, so it's certainly something that we would consider. But at this time, there's just not a plan in place yet for those sites, and just because of the environment we're in, could be some years before something actually moves forward. But the density that the height restriction would allow by moving to this zoning requirement would open up those possibilities to do things like that. But I guess it's probably too far out to really know at this point what that might provide.
Right, but you understand that the position that we're in is we have to make a decision now.
Yeah.
About whether or not we should grant this change to the law to your company.
Makes sense. We're probably asking that you might grant it without those kind of concessions at this point, given that we're right next to other TSA zoning and we're right next to tracks, being about a block away, just there on 4th South. That just opens up the idea for us to explore those kind of things and figure out what might work. The additional height in the new zone would open up more possibilities. So I think we'd be open to exploring those things, but and understand you don't want to make a decision right now. But yeah, we think that this zone makes sense just given that it's right next to other properties that have that same type of zoning to it.
Chair, may I make a comment?
Yep, Councilmember Lopez Chavez.
You know, this is zoning that we've seen on 400 South used, and my concern has been the retail space. We see a lot of businesses come in and out, and we haven't been able to solidify that. So that would be my concern primarily, as well as the cost of square footage going up in the city. It pushes out small businesses, and that's a concern for Central City Community Council and the communities nearby. But I appreciate the 2-bedroom units. I think that's more of what we'd like to see in the city, and I'd like to consider it. But that is my primary concern, is that retail foreground space.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Councilmember Puig.
I think that Councilmember Wharton brings up a good point. Sorry, I put a little cracker in my mouth right before I started making a comment. I'm all about density, and we have made that very clear last year. And height is something I'm looking forward in any development, and I appreciate that piece. Giving me more units, it is not the carrot. Use our zoning tools to get something for the public, for something that is a greater benefit, that the market is not solving by itself. And I know that you have not yet been required to submit any of these plans to this project, but I feel that we need to start talking about those projects, about the actual final project, before I can give you the zoning. Because this is a prime real estate lot. This is in the middle of a growing city, very close to this building and whatnot. I want to see something else than just units. We're seeing units everywhere. I love the activation, and I agree with that. And I think if we can verbalize what the public benefits are to a higher density, I will be supportive of this plan. But at the moment, I think I need a little more substance to this to grant, personally, to grant the higher density. And you also understand that this is the only lever that we have in our city to be pulled, right? So it is hard for us to just give it away. And if I give it away to you with nothing in exchange, it also diminishes the power that we have when someone else wants to do a rezone, because arguably they could say, well, you give it to them and you didn't ask them for anything in exchange. So in my point of view, I think we need to ask for something else, and I think we need to go a little, maybe, I hate slowing down projects like this because we need the housing and we need it badly, but we also need to think about what we're giving away. So that's where I stand at the moment.
Councilmember Young.
So I agree with Councilmember Lopez Chavez as well as Councilmember Puig. I just think that it's an opportunity here for you to articulate what that community benefit would be for the greater community. This street is very familiar to me. I drive down it every single day. And as a part of that, I can tell that even from the community standpoint, there are a lot of units going in that particular area, like both across the street as well as further east. We're seeing a lot of development. And I think one of the things that I think about in addition to that street activation is also back to what Councilmember Wharton said in terms of green space or opportunities. Again, I think you have options here. It would just be helpful to know what that particular community benefit is to then inform a decision of this council to grant the request.
Did you want to respond to some of these?
Yeah. And I appreciate that. I mean, we're definitely interested in providing affordable housing. Sometimes requiring that affordable housing go on those sites through the zoning creates essentially an additional tax on the property, because your rents are restricted to create that affordable housing, right? And so you have to make up those costs somewhere else, because you still have the same cost to create the affordable unit with a deed restriction that you do for a market rate unit. So if your rents are now limited with the affordable housing, you've got to make it up on the other side, and you can only push the market rates up so much, and so it may cause a project to not even be able to move forward because now the cost on the market rates are just too high. Just because of that tax burden of it. And so what that may actually do is make it so nothing can get built there, and then you just are stuck with the old buildings that are currently there.
Unless enough of the unit is affordable that you can qualify for other financing tools that you wouldn't otherwise be able to qualify for. In which case, you wouldn't have to make the market rate rents higher necessarily. But it's all fact dependent, of course. And
right.
I wanted to mention to my co-councilor members, I don't necessarily I don't agree with the comment necessarily that like we shouldn't be adopting rezones without a public good, or that we shouldn't adopt rezones without a development plan in place. I think oftentimes that's very appropriate for us to do. The difference here, and I am not saying I agree or disagree with what other council members have said. The difference that I see between this and other places where we have granted rezones without development plans is that the RMU 45 zone isn't as broken as some of our other zones, where we've gone, for instance, I'm thinking of Coachman's, which I'm still sad that no development has happened there. But we did a pretty significant rezone there without a development plan, and I voted for that, and I supported that. It is a bit different to me just because that was a zone that, in my perspective, was encouraging really bad development, and we were turning it into a zone that's encouraging really good development. That's a little bit different here because I think both of these zones, aside from the height, encourage mixed use and don't have huge setbacks and don't have, generally have the things that we want in them. I would say that plays into my decision a little bit here. I think we have a few options, and I would look to the attorney's office or the planning division to tell me if I'm wrong, or Nick Tarbett. But it sounds like we could move forward and approve. We could move forward with a decision based on the information's given. We could choose not to make a decision and wait until, it sounds like because of the market conditions, like most developments, it might take years for this to happen anyway. So we could table it. We could ask, or we could try and get it done now and see what the applicant may be amenable to putting in a development agreement that is, we don't know exactly what the case might be, but if there was whatever the conditions might be, can be written down. We can't say it has to look like this, or, that's not the situation that we have right now and what's been presented to us. But I guess for me, if I would be interested in hearing from the applicant in terms of what, if there are anything right now that you would say, these are some things that we think are community benefits that we could agree to in whatever potential future development might happen.
Honestly, it's probably tough because we're the applicant, but we also have co-applicants in it, which are the other property owners. So we actually don't own the parcels on the east side, and so they're part of this. We may enter partnerships with those property owners. We don't have that partnership formed today, and we've already moved forward with the west parcel. That's already been approved and is under development. So I wouldn't be able to speak, I guess, for those other owners. So I guess I just wouldn't have an answer for that.
Councilor Wharton?
Yeah, I certainly appreciate what you're trying to do. I think that those properties right now are underutilized, and I would like to see, something else there with more activation. But my first goal, this is my opinion as a council member, is to try to advance the public good, and especially in the midst of the situation that we're in, where there's growing gaps between affordability in Salt Lake City, and limited ability for me to directly influence that. And then there are also demands that we have on our city with the heat island and with sustainability and with air quality. For me personally, when these proposals come to me, you have this land, or the people that you represent or your partners have this land. You're free to develop it, and you're free to do whatever existed at the time that you purchased that land. But if you're coming to the city and asking us for some change so that your project can provide even more, then I feel that we need to have some sort of public good come out of that. Because you're asking me, zoning is the law, and you're asking me to change the law for your project. And so I need to know why that's in the public good.
Councilmember Dugan?
And I'm going to agree with Councilmember Wharton on this one, and I appreciate that, because again, and I appreciate the efforts to build properties, but very easily you got RMF 45, you could build the same thing at market rate, and you can go forward. You're asking for additional height with basically everything else similar. So what do we get in return for giving you that additional height? And I'm not looking for an answer now, because you said you can't give us an answer at this point, which is understandable, because you have other entities that have to participate in that discussion and that decision. But that's what I'm looking for before I make a decision on this project. So, and we're not making a decision tonight. We have a process to go through, but those are some of the questions that we need to have a discussion on, the benefits to the community and the city as a whole across the board.
And I would just to add to that too a little bit, I think that I totally agree with everything you said. For me, the question is, like when we say, what are we getting out of it? Like, I mean, the people of Salt Lake. Why is it in the best interest of the people of Salt Lake for you to be able to build higher?
I guess what I would contribute to the conversation, or I know your organization, I know you have actually some of the most brilliant affordable housing experts on your team.
Yes.
And so I would encourage you to have them take a look at this parcel and say, what could happen here if we were going to change our intentions and look at an affordable housing piece, and how could that work? I would be interested in knowing that you at least considered that, and really gave some thought to looking at that one as an affordable housing project.
Mr. Chair, or something else, right? And I think that Councilmember Warren and we're trying to. There's other goals that we're trying to further to, and it could be something else. It doesn't necessarily have to be only affordability. I mean, there is a lot of an array of goals that we're trying to achieve in our city that this project could hit on, and it doesn't necessarily have to be affordability. So I think that there is. Very, very much, a sense here that, we are supportive, but we are still want to see a little more beyond before we can move forward with this. So I think this is the general sense at the moment.
Do you have any sense for, as you talk about affordability, or I'd be curious of what those other goals might be, but do you have any sense of what kind of affordability level you might be looking for? Are you thinking about like a percentage of the building perhaps, or a percentage of income, or just
I think that's too
asking
specific
for us to make a proposal? I
think that's
or...
too specific for right now, most likely. I guess my request would be like, really consider an affordable project. I understand that sometimes we talk to developers and say, I can do 10% of the units at 80% AMI, and sometimes that's a win for us. That may be enough, right? Like that might be enough. I don't know. I can't speak for the whole body, or even myself at this point. But I would actually consider a truly affordable project, and what the highest and best use in terms of creating housing for the people that can't afford it at all, even with one roommate. And I think it's different because, again, it's all context dependent for me. And I'm not saying I wouldn't support this even without any of those things. I think that may be what some of my colleagues are saying. I'm not saying that, just to be clear, but the reason why I feel less inclined to say we should support this without any development agreements are fact dependent, and the current zoning isn't terrible in terms of what it gives the street activation, and a market rate apartment building along between 4th and 5th South is not rare. Like that's not something that part of the neighborhood is lacking, right? So if it could be, maybe it's not an affordable project, but it's like, we're going to put the coolest commercial space and we're going to rent it out below market rate so that startups can be in there. I'm like, that could be something that 4th South doesn't have, but a market rate apartment project is something there's a lot of right there.
Other things we've talked. Sorry,
we're so far behind schedule. Guys.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. I won't go in. I would just encourage
Thanks,
you.
Councilmember Dugan, for reminding us.
Yeah, I would just encourage you. You guys have a lot of smart people that you work with and that are on your teams. Like Councilmember Mono said, I'm not saying it has to be affordability. Affordability is the obvious thing, and it's the thing that most developers that are asking for a zoning change come before us with. But there are sustainability things. There is the need to have families downtown, and while I appreciate that 2 bedrooms is better than 1, it's not family size housing, or in other areas we've considered, like if you're going to have a grocery store be component and it's in a food desert, like that can be a public benefit too. So there isn't an exhaustive list. These are just examples. And I know that if you guys go back and think about this, that you'll be able to come up with something.
And all right, let's move on to the next item. Thank you for being here.
So, sorry, just to be clear, I don't mean to hold this up any longer. So are you asking us then to come back at a later date with a more defined proposal? How do you want us to proceed?
I don't know the legal procedure, but I think as the applicant, you can ask us to vote on the item, and but you could also work on the proposal a little bit more. You can choose. I think you have some choices, and the council's let you know what their priorities are. Not everyone spoke, so there may be, I don't know. You can.
I for one am not interested in stopping your progress. I am interested in finding where we can get our Venn diagrams to overlap a little more. So if you talk to planning division staff, craft a pathway forward that kind of is responsive to some of the issues you've heard here, I would really welcome the chance to have you on a future work session and continue this without stopping your appeal at this point.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we're going to move on to item number 4, which is an informational update from the Downtown Alliance. Dee Brewer, Executive Director, Jessica Thiesing, Deputy Director, and Carly Gillespie, also Deputy Director, are here. And there's no staff introduction to this, so sorry to make you wait. Thank you for joining us. I think that they have slides, is that correct? Yes. So
Correct.
If staff could pull up the slides. Go ahead whenever you're ready and the slides are ready.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't receive any slides for this.
We're happy to be here. Thank you to the council. We've appreciated the individual conversations we've had with you and glad to have this conversation as a group. We're appreciative of the administration and the Department of Economic Development and all that we've accomplished together this year. Next slide. Or I guess we need the first slide. Are those up?
I'm sorry, I didn't receive any slides for this this morning. Do you have the file that you could send right now?
We are not hearing Scott.
Sorry, that was just that we didn't have slide decks for this presentation.
Oh, it sounds like
if we
got lost in the...
You did on Friday.
We sent it.
Yeah, they did.
Scott, they were provided on Friday. If we can give you a minute to gather those.
Okay.
Right, just a moment. I apologize for the delay.
Ben, are you here? Okay.
We can.
Ben sending.
Council can follow along if you want to continue, though. We have it on ours.
As they're bringing those slides up, we're here to give you a report of 2023. Key initiatives that we were involved with, some data. Jessica Thiesing is going to review a very high-level budget piece of that. Carly Gillespie is going to give you a farmers market update. Jessica will also review the ambassadors program and Open Streets report for 2023. While we're waiting for those slides to come up, I will also review our responsibilities per state statute on special assessment areas. So that is first, we promote economic growth downtown, including sponsoring festivals and markets, promoting business investment and activities, helping to coordinate public and private actions, and developing publications to improve the economic well-being of downtown, the commercial area. The next slide is a budget slide that might be helpful to have it, but Jessica, why don't you just talk them through that?
We do have them while they're.
Oh, okay.
We see them on our screens.
You see that slide?
Yes.
Yeah.
But their staff is getting it pulled up for the public as well.
Great. Well, I think the important part to look at.
Jessica, is your microphone on? Is there a green light?
On the button that says push?
Yes.
Perfect. Awesome. Our overall budget this year is about 5.15 million. The important numbers to look at here are the CBA assessment, which is our Central Business Improvement Area assessment, is 1.6 million. And then the other big number here is the government grants. Those come in for special projects. Occasionally, partner organizations, including Salt Lake City, come to us with things that they want done. We partner with them, and that's where those funds come from. The next slide is an overview of those percentages. By state statute, we are required to be under 30% for admin costs. If you look under G&A, which is general and administrative, we are below 10% for admin, and over 90% of our funds go directly into programming.
We have a board of advisors, and those advisors identified key initiatives for this year. I'm going to give you those 4 to advocate for improvements in downtown street safety. This is a refrain from our stakeholders. To champion investments in quality residential, retail, office, and public space. And also to champion activations to enhance the experience of downtown residents, workers, and visitors. The 4th one, to champion investment that support the Utah Jazz's long-term residency downtown. We're all interested in that, and we continue to pursue that. So looks like the slides have caught up with us. Excellent. Embedded in all of this is stakeholder engagement, and the Downtown Alliance convenes merchants, developers, property owners, elected officials, nearly 30 meetings over the last year to gather information and to share information. One of the things we're asked to do is to publish information of use in creating economic opportunity downtown. And our, next slide, please. And our Downtown Economic Benchmark report, one more slide. Yes, our Downtown Economic Benchmark report is a robust analysis of what's happening in retail, transportation, public spaces, and a number of other categories. And of course, that's available to you at any time and on our website. Next slide, please. We are charged with promoting what's happening downtown. We use Meltwater Media to measure, as a measurement tool, to calculate the paid advertising value of news media coverage. Last year, we generated $11 million in earned media value. So national and local news. And that is just a steady drip system of economic encouragement downtown. Next slide, please. Our subscription newsletter has an open rate of 41%. That's fantastic. A weekly curated list of recommendations for downtown arts, entertainment, and other productions. Next slide. Our social media following is 273,000 followers. That's larger than many major local media organizations. And this is important, again, for promoting our local productions. Next slide. We're tasked with creating vitality, and last year we created over 150 days of activation downtown. I'm going to point to some of those directly. I'm looking at number 3 on the list. We provide financial support and promotional support for living traditions, Twilight Concert Series, Festa Italiana, Greek Festival, Busker Fest, Illuminate, and about a dozen other festivals that are produced downtown. Next slide, please. One of the things we're doing is Glow at Gallivan. This is activation that happens from November through March 1st. These are winter sculptures and installations at Gallivan Center. We will also be, in February, we'll be producing Groove at Gallivan, and Representative Wharton, I know you expressed your affection for roller skating. It'll be ice skating with ice skating disco on Thursdays every day in February. Please join us. Suit up. Stay safe. Next slide, please. Last Hurrah is a free public New Year's celebration created by the Downtown Alliance and now produced by the Gateway with financial and promotional support by the Downtown Alliance. Next slide, please. With the help of Salt Lake City and Visit Salt Lake, this last year we created a new holiday, 801 Day, August 1st, where we programmed performers, gave away swag, and planted seeds for what we hope becomes a celebration of all things 801. These are just a few examples of the kind of things that we do on a regular basis, 150 days of programming last year. Next slide, please. I want to review some visitation trends, and this is really an important measurement of how we look at downtown. Next slide, please. What is a customer day downtown? Anytime somebody comes downtown for 90 minutes or more, that is a customer day. That is an opportunity. So you can see the distribution of 16.6 million customer days in 2022. And I'm using 22 because we don't have the data yet for 23. But we had residents are important, workers are important, but the major contributor to the downtown economy are visitors. People who don't live or work downtown, but come downtown with a ticket in their hand, or for a dinner, or for bars, restaurants, nighttime social economy. Next slide, please. I thought it would be helpful to look at how this has changed since 2019, pre-pandemic. Residential population has grown at least 10%, and our initial data from last year shows a big jump in residential population. Worker census is down 48% from 2019, but the good news is that it's up about 23% from last year, and we expect that to continue to climb. Now, that biggest cohort, visitors, is up 14% since 2019. And again, I can't stress how important that is. Go to the next slide, if you would. I want to talk about the top visitation days.
Could I ask a quick question?
Oh,
on
you
that?
bet.
I've seen you present these
Yes.
a few times. It's super interesting. I know it comes from cell phone data, right?
Correct.
Can you tell us what the geographic fence is that's
So the
calculated
fence, the fence we use are our boundaries. So it's much smaller than what you probably think about as downtown. North Temple to 400 south, 300 east to 600 west, roughly.
And a cell phone needs to be in that area for how many minutes?
More than 90 minutes.
More than 90 minutes.
And it's how we calculated all of this.
All right, thanks.
So, you bet. So, you've probably heard me then also mention what drives visitation downtown. 76% of the top 25 visitation days had events at the Delta Center. And mind you, the Jazz is 30% of the programming at the Delta Center. So monster truck shows, Disney on Ice, concerts. Okay, 72% of those top visitation days had conventions in town. Half of those had 8 or more arts and entertainment events, a huge driver for visitation downtown. And shopping is also a continuous investment in the vitality of downtown. So next slide, please. I want to touch on 4 current market conditions that are guiding what we do with our energy and our resources. Again, sports, arts, entertainment are driving regional visitation. The convention district hotel bookings are up 15% last year. That's thanks to the good work of Visit Salt Lake. That is a substantial increase. The downtown, the central business district population will double by 2026. We should have a conversation another day about just how important that is going to be to the evolution of downtown. The central business district worker census will continue to grow. It has been growing very well the last year, but the reckoning in the workplace is not over.
D, just a quick question.
You
When
bet.
you say CBD population, is this residential and workers, or?
No, that's just the residential population. So when you look at the what is under construction currently, when that fills up, we will move from about 4,900 residents in this district to over 10,000.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep. You're up, Carly. Next slide, please.
Well, I have the fun job of updating everyone on the Downtown Farmers Market. So we just wrapped up our 32nd season of the Downtown Farmers Market in Pioneer Park. Next slide. Thanks, Jess.
You're welcome.
And beginning in 2022, I really tried to focus some energy on data collection. So we started collecting customer and vendor data to better understand our impacts as the Downtown Farmers Market. I'd like to draw your attention to the top right corner of the screen. So that shows our sales data and really shows our economic impact. As you can see, we have an average of 10,000 customers in Pioneer Park on a market day. We estimate about $9 million in sales. That represents 21 Saturdays for 6 hours, and those sales are directly with our vendors. So those are direct to consumer sales from vendors that are coming from 16 counties across the state. We think we had about a 7% increase over 2022. And so 2022, before this year, was our most successful season. This marks our most successful season at the Downtown Farmers Market. Another really important factor for the Downtown Farmers Market is our role as a business incubator for small businesses in Utah. If you see the stats at the bottom of the page, when we survey our vendors, we see the women-owned businesses, our vendors that are women-owned, 65% of our vendors are women-owned businesses, 25% minority-owned. And we know that 35% of our businesses actually launched their businesses at the Downtown Farmers Market. So we have a huge impact on these small beginning businesses, entrepreneurs, and we're really proud of the work that we do. One final stat that I want to mention that I didn't include on this slide, our impact on the resident population in Salt Lake City. Food access is a super important part of our programming. We operate a SNAP program, formerly known as food stamps. I looked at our numbers earlier, and between our SNAP program and a program we call Double Up Food Bucks, which is where we match SNAP dollars, dollar for dollar, up to $30, we had about $50,000 in sales at our farmers market. in this past season, and a total of 70,000 for 2023. So that includes part of last year's winter market, this year's winter market, and the summer market. So a huge amount of access to locally grown, nutritiously dense food. Next slide. We're in the middle of our winter farmers market. This is our 10th season. We estimate that we bring about 2,000 patrons to downtown Salt Lake each Saturday during the winter to shop from 60 local vendors. We are in our 4th location in the past 5 years since the earthquake damaged the Rio Grande building. We're very grateful for the Gateway for offering us that space. And we're seeing more farmers than ever, and our sales continue to grow at that market as well. Next slide, please. Finally, we just wanted to mention that we have been working with Public Lands for the past year on their plans for Pioneer Park. We know that Pioneer Park will be undergoing renovations beginning in the fall of 2024. To this end, we've been working with city departments, including the RDA, Building Services, Fire, Traffic, Special Events, and others to understand the requirements of producing the market in the streets or alternative properties adjacent to Pioneer Park during construction. We hope through this process, we can determine the best possible operating plan for the Downtown Farmers Market in 2025 season and into the future. We're committed to keeping the Downtown Farmers Market and our economic impact in downtown Salt Lake.
Next slide, please. So our Street Ambassador program.
Sorry,
Councilmember Wharton.
just a couple questions about the new location. So, so that'll start in 2025. But you know, that area is still work in progress. Is there do you anticipate like, I guess what I'm worried about is like, are we going to still see that level of turnout in that space? And I'm sure the answer is yes, or you wouldn't be doing it. But, like, where are people going to sit? Where are people going to park? Stuff like that. Is that stuff that's still being worked out?
Yeah, is the question operations during construction?
Yes. And, yeah, I just want to know, like, what I'm having trouble seeing it and what it's going to look like, through everything that's going on right there.
You know, we are working with all of these city departments. We've also been working with GSBS architects to kind of look at where the market will fit best. We also understand that it's going to look different for a couple years. I know that a market move is always difficult, and that is why it's so important for us to keep it adjacent to Pioneer Park, because that is where we have been known to operate for 32 years.
Yeah.
And those fitting all of those pieces together is part of what we're looking at with a consultant right now.
Okay. Well, I'm very anxious to hear what that looks like when you're done.
We'll be back.
Me too.
Time, but yeah, I want it to be more successful in this location than it has been, and you know, I'm a big proponent of not only the farmers market, but having a permanent public market, and I hope that this is part of that, and orienting people to that part of the city. But I am, in my own protest, not calling the Depot District anymore, or Station Center. So calling it the Rio Grande area thing.
Market District?
Sure, that would work too. Yeah, Market District, love it. Taking suggestions.
Good.
I had a quick comment.
So yeah, I'm excited to hear what you have planned.
Councilmember Young had a comment, and then Councilmember Lopez Chavez.
Please, go ahead.
So thank you. So just knowing that sometimes things in the city get delayed, I would want to make sure to follow up on Councilmember Wharton's comments, knowing that there's a contingency plan. And I know you have a lot of great infrastructure and relationships related to the current location, and just kind of making sure that we're not putting all our eggs in one basket, in the case that we do need some additional transition time. I just think that that would be important. I would hate for there to be we just don't have the market for this year in terms of a delay, because there's so many of our businesses that rely on that. And I just wanted to echo not just support for what's to come, but also making sure that we're kind of making sure that we have a diversification of efforts depending on what happens.
I think I can confidently say that there is 100% no chance that the market will not happen. I have nearly 300 vendors who count on this income, and it is as important to us as it is to you to continue the farmers market. We saw the impacts of even just having to shrink the farmers market in 2020, and we saw businesses that are no longer in business because of those changes that we had to make. And we are fully committed to finding something that works, and that is why we're looking at so many different locations and really trying to figure out how to best make it work. And we're confident that by the 2025 season, June of 2025, we can come up with the best possible solution for ourselves, our vendors, and the city.
I'm excited, Chair, if I may.
Yep,
I'm very excited by this. And if I'm not mistaken, you said that the farmers market attributes $11 million of transactional sales, which is phenomenal. You don't see many events like that happening in our downtown, so I'm very supportive. I'd love to see, and maybe this can be communicated to GSBS, but what does expanding the footprint of the farmers market look like? I think one of the great things about it being malleable is that we get to explore and see its plurality grow in different parts of the city, which I would hope we are supportive of. We don't want to just constrain it to the Pioneer Park, but expanding it in a way that makes room for the residents and growth that we're experiencing. This is an event that families from all over the Point of the Mountain and other parts of our county come to. So I would love to explore that in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We would be happy to bring those back at a later date. I think one thing that's interesting is even our experience with open streets, we've now are trying to apply even what we've learned with closing streets as we transition the market into this transitional period and possibly the future. All of these skills that we've learned with some of these other events during the pandemic are coming into play, and they're part of the discussion.
All right, Councilman Petro had a quick comment.
Yep, because we're probably gonna have to cut this short anyway. I love the farmers market, acknowledge its value. I do not like that I'm hearing about it so late, potentially being moved, and would hope for a more collaborative and acknowledgement with the council, mostly because if you're banking on something at Station Center, it is binding our hands legislatively. We don't have a governance structure in yet. We only have a portion of the funding. We are not sure what's going in there, and I want to be able to make decisions in the best interest of the entire city, in the best interest of you at the table. But please invite us in earlier to these conversations. We have a lot of skin in this game. Secondarily, you haven't presented the thing, but when we get to the open streets, activation is not an itemization. I don't know what that means, even if you put including artist payments. It's the reason both Darren and I took a no vote on the funding for this year. If we can in future years understand what activation means more thoroughly, it will help my decision-making process, and I'd really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, councilors, we're severely behind time, and there's more slides. Jessica, I hate to do this to you, but could you quickly go through your portion of the slides?
Well, maybe it's easier if, do we want to jump to open streets? I mean, I know, do we want to go through these quick? So I was just going to talk about ambassadors quick, and then
I'm going to give you the remainder of the time, and I'm going to try and cut them off more.
Okay.
So go ahead and tell us what you want to say.
We can jump to open streets. And maybe we should just start with activation. So in 2023, we activated Main Street with, we had a pop-up park. We had active mural paintings, yoga on Main Street, golf, and a number of other things, including a thrift bus, selfie day, scavenger hunts, a market. We tried and did a lot of things. I think it equated to about 94 total activations that our blocks team worked with partners to make sure happened on Open Streets Days. Open Streets Days was 14 days, a total of 7 weeks. I'm sorry, I wasn't even on the slide, but you can flip to the Open Streets 2023 cost categories. There we go. So this is just a basic P&L of 2023 costs. You all received a report that went into these costs and included some definitions. If you have questions about these cost categories, I'm happy to answer them before we move on to the more detailed slides. Okay, we can flip to the next slide. So, activation. We, over the course of 4 seasons of Open Streets, we also included NBA All-Star in here because NBA All-Star and the last 2 seasons of Open Streets were contracted between the Downtown Alliance and the city. Previous to that, it was sort of, we were just trying to figure out how to deal with the pandemic, and we just sort of worked together a little bit more informally. So with just looking through what these activation schedules looked like, the top line on this page is the actual number of activations that we counted on Main Street during the period of time that aligned with Open Streets. The second line is actual payments to artists. And I want to focus here on the NBA All-Star. You see that only 3 payments to artists were made through the block, or actually through the DTA. The reason for that is our artist programmers or our artisan organizations that we hired actually did the hiring of artists. We were in a short time frame when we were planning that event. We had to maximize our time. We had to maximize our partnerships with really talented organizations in the community so that those funds went directly to them to make that happen. I think we can move on to the next slide. So this is the general costs. We have it broken down into operations costs and activations costs. Activation costs are the costs associated with both hiring artists and managing those activations on Main Street. So we had our team, our DTA and the Blocks team out there making sure artists had the rugs that they needed, had the electricity that they needed, that they were in the right location. So all of that costs, time, but mostly with our staff to make sure that those things went off smoothly. Operation costs are all of the other costs required. So it includes things like renting barricades. It includes things like our vendor contracts with our security, which out of all the things that cost a lot of money with Open Street, security is the big one. We have to have a body at each intersection at all times. And those people cannot move. They can't respond to emergencies. Their job is to move the barricade in case a vehicle needs to get through, and that's it. So our security costs, and we're going to see, I think I put another table in here, if not. The biggest cost difference between 21 and 22 Open Street seasons, there's a jump, and you'll see this in your report in the security costs. It almost doubled, and the reason for that was we moved out of a pandemic and we were required regulatorily to provide additional security, including a person at each intersection. So here you can see operations versus activation. Then we have our funding sources. So Salt Lake City provided some initial CARES Act funding in the 2020 season of $30,000. A report for that was submitted in detail a couple of years ago. Then we had the additional funding Salt Lake City contributed to 2022. That was a split between the general fund and the RDA. 2023 NBA All-Star, Salt Lake City contributed to that as well. And then, of course, this last fall season. Other funding sources are generally provided by the Downtown Alliance and mostly by our coffers, as well as some of our partners organizations who have sponsored the event and, for other partnerships. All of that is detailed in the report that you received. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
All right. I jumped forward to your next slide, and I'm worried it's a long discussion slide.
Yeah.
So
sure.
If it's all right, we know how to get a hold of you.
You do.
You know how to get a hold of us. That conversation Yeah, it's in our packet, but it's about the future of open streets. That conversation is something we want to engage with you in, but we probably need a little more time than we have left today.
Sure.
That is a good choice.
Yes.
So let's not go into that. And council members, you know how to get a hold of all of these people too. So thank you so much. Is there any last comments you want to make?
No, I just want to say thank you. I think Open Streets has been an incredible and continues to be an incredible project. We are really grateful with our partnership with the council, the administration, and economic development, and just the community support that we've received for this. So thank you all.
All right, thank you. Let's see. I'm gonna say, just so we don't make our board appointees wait any longer, that we're gonna switch up the order a little bit. Go to our board appointments. There are two. The first is Luz Escamilla to the airport board, and the second is Nathan Rafferty to the airport board. They are both here virtually, and then we'll go back to the budget member number 3, and I think we just want to touch on one thing while we have Chief Lieb here. So we'll discuss the fire item in budget amendment number 3, and then hopefully be done in time to eat something and go to formal meeting. Hello, thank you so much for being here and joining us. Hello, Senator Escamilla. Thank you for joining us in what I'm sure is a busy time for you, getting ready. But appreciate both of you and being willing to serve on our airport board. We just ask that you introduce yourself to us and to the public. Tell us a little bit about your background and why the airport board is the place for you. So we'll go to Senator Escamilla first, since you're first on the agenda.
Thank you very much, council members, for this opportunity. I do not do a lot of speaking on your council meeting, so this is certainly a great opportunity. And first of all, Happy New Year to all of you. Excited for the opportunity to continue working. Working in collaboration with the city. My name is Luz Escamilla. I'm a state senator, represented Senate District 10, which represents the areas of the entire northwest quadrant of Salt Lake City, and about 60% of West Valley City and all Magna City. So it's excited to represent the west side, and been in this position for 15 years. And of course, the Salt Lake City International Airport happens to be in my district, and been seeing the changes and the growth, and just how it's becoming a very key piece for our economy, of course, and a connector. And of course, having the inland port also there, it's very important. So I, following the steps of my predecessor in terms of not only being a minority leader, but a good friend and colleague, former Senator Karen Main, that served in the airport board for many years. I wanted to make sure that our voices also of connecting between our constituencies was represented. And I also in my private life, as someone that's works on international businesses, and just the importance of having a functioning airport that is, as it continues to grow and continues to be a great asset for our state. I want to just serve with, be able to provide some support, not only as a state senator, but also a constituent in that area, and representing the voices of many on the west side of the northwest quadrant part of the city, and provide, just support truly as we continue to grow in the state, and to see the airport moving in all the different stages of the growth. And we will be hopefully welcoming also the Olympics pretty soon here. So just anything that I can do to support, I'm here and excited to be part of this conversation and participate in this process.
Thank you, Senator Escamilla. Council members, any questions or comments for Luz?
No comments. Yes, no questions. I will say that very briefly that I look up to Senator Escamilla and every day to her leadership and example, and I aspire to be like her, and I look forward to her leadership in this board, and I know that everything that she touches, it flourishes, and there is something amazing that happens. So looking forward to this.
I feel as though I have made it, that I'm finally on a board with Senator Escamilla. I'm putting it on my CV. I'm so excited to have you and look forward to our joint advocacy for our shared home in a new capacity.
All right. Thank you, council members, and thank you, Senator Escamilla. Next, Nathan Rafferty, and please correct my pronunciation if I have that wrong. You can do the same thing and just introduce yourself a little bit and why you're interested in the airport board.
Great. You guys can hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Super. My name's Nathan Rafferty. I'm the president and CEO of Ski Utah. We're a 501c6, the association that represents the ski industry in Utah, membership association. We've got all 15 of the public ski areas and the one private ski area under our umbrella. I am a graduate of Highland High School and currently reside in Park City, Utah. But, being on this board is important to me. Second only to the greatest snow on earth is the greatest access on earth. And as you might imagine, we do a lot of research and surveying our guests that come from around the world to come ski and snowboard here. And literally second only to snow conditions are the access and how easy it is to get in and out of Salt Lake City. And with my Ski Utah hat off, I'm a bit of an airport nerd. And even when the new airport opened, my wife and I booked a flight to fly to Portland just to have dinner with our daughter so we could say we flew out of the airport on the first day. And it was so exciting. But it's a huge asset to not only our industry, but everybody in the Intermountain area and Salt Lake City, Wasatch Front especially.
Well, that is a claim to fame. First day. All right, council members. Hey,
Yeah,
Councilmember Young.
cool.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. I will say we will claim you in District 7, home of the great Highland High School, as part of representation. But I do think that you bring up a really important point and perspective that I appreciate, which is the fact that we call it the Salt Lake City Airport, but that it really serves our entire valley, and all of the individuals and neighborhoods and municipalities around us. So thank you for that expertise, and I appreciate you being willing to help the city as we look at moving the way forward.
All right. Well, the both of you will be on our consent agenda tonight for confirmation. You don't need to attend that meeting, but that's when it becomes official. And thank you so much for being willing to serve Salt Lake City and specifically the airport board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to jump back in our agenda to item number 5, which is budget amendment number 3. This is a follow-up discussion. Ben has a little bit of information for us, and then I think we're going to try and, since we're so far behind on time, just keep it to the one item about. Yeah. Great.
I'm going to assume the Chief and Mary Beth are coming up to the table.
And that's your invitation to join us.
Mr. Chair, very quickly.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention, obviously, we all got hit with a notification in our phones about an emergency alert, National Weather Service snow squall warning. And it hit on the west side already, and it's very strong. The winds are, making the lights, go on and off. So it's very strong on the west side already. So I'm not sure it's coming this way, but I just want to make sure that everybody that is traveling and listening or just be careful out there and spread the word that, there is some weather conditions out there that might be very, very dangerous. Thank you.
Can we get the first page of the staff report displayed? There is a modified proposal for item A1. This is the table that's now on the screen, comparing the original to the modified proposal. So the original proposal was 4 new full-time employees, or FTEs. This had an estimated cost of $160,000 from general fund balance, which is the city's savings account. And that would only be a half-year cost. In the rightmost column, you'll see that the next annual budget fiscal year 2025 budget had a $292,000 cost. The modified proposal is the row right below that. It is still 4 civilian single role paramedics. However, 2 of them would be converting existing vacant positions that are entry-level firefighters. An entry-level firefighter and a civilian paramedic have the same costs. The other 2 would be new FTEs. So it would be a total of 4 paramedics, but now it's converting 2 of those 4. The impact this fiscal year is budget neutral, but the next annual budget would have $133,000 that needs to be added to pay for those 2 new FTEs, while the existing budget can cover the conversion of the 2 vacant firefighter FTEs.
But that 133 would not backfill the 2 vacant sworn firefighter positions. Is that correct, or would it?
There's already budget for those 2 vacant positions this fiscal year. So in the annual budget, there was funding for all of the positions in the fire department. 2 of them are vacant. This would change them to civilian paramedics.
But if we wanted to then, for some reason we needed to then also add 2 additional firefighters because for some reason that was necessary. I don't know if that's true or not. This 133 doesn't consider that as well.
Okay. No, it doesn't. That would be in addition.
Okay.
And I don't know if the chief wants to add
Chief,
anything.
Feel free to.
Thank you, Council Number 1, for just addressing this tonight. I appreciate that.
You've been waiting very patiently, so felt rude not to let
Never
you
know. Let me summarize this as simply as I can. We've modified the amendment, number 1, because we think it's a priority to move in this direction. But it serves 2 purposes. We're trying to increase the scope of our medical response team, which currently is staffed with EMTs. If we can get a paramedic on there, specifically a civilian paramedic on each one of those, we can expand their scope of service, which in the end eliminates the need for a heavy apparatus to roll on many of these calls. So we can increase their volume with a light duty response unit. We don't have to send a truck or an engine. That's the simple way of putting it. We also send those firefighters that are going to be displaced, 2 of them, currently if we convert them, back into operations. They will fill vacancies throughout the city, or staffing vacancies, which are minimally staffed at 4-handed. And that's going to save us some money as well on that end. It's also going to frame our budget, obviously, for fiscal year 25. So we're going to know if we can even hire civilian paramedics for this role. But we think it's certainly worthy of finding out. There's an interest in savings. There's an interest in service. And there's certainly an interest in efficiency all around for the city and the fire department.
Can you remind me what a paramedic can do that an EMT cannot?
Paramedics have increased scope of response for EMS council members, so they can do things like tracheotomies. They can provide medications that an EMT cannot. They can do some other interventions that are life-saving, immediate, and assessments that an EMT is not capable of.
Councilmember Petro.
In an effort to get us to a closing point on this, I know I am one of the primary holdouts on this. As a general principle, I am not okay with us doing mid-year personnel increases that don't respond to an immediately emergent issue that's apparent. But I really do appreciate all the work you've done on being responsive to that pressure, and I'm willing to be okay with this and move forward as long as I've stated that general guiding principle.
Mr. Chair, and just chiefly good to see you. I did listen when I was the council member elect, but just to state and reinforce, I think as we've seen calls of service progress, this is something that's important to me. So although we are, responsible for our fiduciary responsibilities and mechanics, I think this is really important for us. So I am supportive.
Thank you.
Councilmember Young.
So the thing that I really like about this is the fact that you're testing the market to be able to inform whether that efficiency is something we can plan for in future budget efforts. To me, this is like a pretty short time frame to be able to see what the reaction is. And so I would support you in moving forward with that to then be that much more informed about what's possible for future budgetary processes. Side note, I have been a personal benefactor of the paramedic responses that come from the fire department, and I'm just forever grateful for those service.
I thought you were going to make a straw poll, Councilmember Young.
I would like to propose a straw poll for support of the modified proposal as presented in backup.
Councilors, any questions of the straw poll? Okay, indicate your thoughts on that. That's unanimous.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you for bringing that to us. And
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
excited to see what happens.
Thanks a lot, Chief.
All right. Is there anything else urgent that we need to address with the budget amendment?
No.
Okay. All right. There is, to my knowledge, no report of the chair and vice chair. We were going to choose seats, but I'm leaving that to the next chair. I do think we have some executive director announcements.
We do. Sorry, very quickly. You have another list of the council meetings for the coming year, and we have a bunch of questions to ask you here. It's probably more efficient if I just ask you to look at those and then get back to us through your liaison or whatever way is most convenient for you. Then the official group photo, we are looking to schedule a time before an upcoming council meeting. And I think that you've all been notified of this, but does anyone have any feedback about whether next Tuesday or Tuesday, February 6th or 13th or 20th would work for you?
I vote for the 20th.
February?
I vote for the last one.
I do too, actually.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm hearing Dan. Okay, and then the next is the council district newsletters for the public utilities. This is a beneficial thing that is available to council members. You only pay the printing cost, and the city includes your newsletter with the public utilities mailing. We can mail 3 districts in 3 months. So each council district gets 1 opportunity, and we need you to let us know whether you would like April, August, or December.
Does anyone want to claim any of those right now?
I would like August specifically.
Okay. It's okay. You can have there
There
3
can be
council
3
members.
per.
I want the end of summer highlight. Yeah.
I want April.
Okay.
I'll take December.
Can you write fast enough?
Okay. August.
You
April
spoke
or
too
December?
slow.
Okay.
West side,
Well, District 5 is going to be the only constituents informed
April
in
or
early in
December?
the year.
Come on, Chris. You're the remaining west side. December or that's part of west side.
Don't know.
Sorry.
But
Okay.
you still have the choice of April or December, and you can tell your liaison once, because I have enough information here to get us going.
Okay, great.
Okay. All right. Then the financial disclosure is something that all of the council members need to fill out, and we submit those to the city recorder's office. If you have previously filled one out and nothing has changed, just let your liaison know that nothing has changed. Then you have the RDA meeting schedule. That's it.
All right. So please, there's some things for us to follow up on. With that, we are going to There's no closed session. There was going to be, but there's not a closed session anymore. We are going to take a break, and we'll be back at 7 o'clock across the street. Not the street. The hallway. For formal meeting. Thanks.